maybe folks, especially Bengals fans and the organization, were hoping for improvement from this Bengals team in 2021. The biggest key thing was getting Joe Burrow back from the lower leg injury, having him healthy for a full season. If you did that, you drafted Jamar Chase, so you got him another weapon in the passing game. Maybe if nothing else, you'll win a few more games and you'll be exciting to watch, an exciting team, win some games, and go on and focus on 2022 and beyond. However, there's no way that anybody could reasonably have expected what ultimately happened with this team last year. And you say, oh, yes, I did. No, you didn't. I mean, because for Christ's sake, in week 2, Joe Burrow and crew lost to Matt Nagy and the Bears. Burrow had 3 turnovers on 3 consecutive plays. I'm sitting there tweeting about him, calling him mid-Burrow because he barely looked mid at that point. Like, he looked horrendous. His team looked bad. Zach Taylor looked like a coach that deserved to be fired in the season. Maybe that was a bit of an overreaction for me for one game, but my God, they were terrible in that game. And they went from losing to Matt Nagy to putting it together, going 10-7, winning the AFC North, which was crucial for both Joe Burrow and for Zach Taylor, the head coach. For Taylor, it validated him a little bit, showed that he knew what he was doing. For Joe Burrow, it gives him the confidence that he was a winning quarterback at the NFL level. He could make it through the entire season healthy. And for Bengals fans, certainly gives you a reason to believe that you have the franchise guy now. And just on the regular season alone. And then what a postseason run this team went on. They beat the Raiders in the wild card round. Then go on the road and upset the number 1 seed Titans in the divisional round. I mean, they beat the Titans. And then they come back from a deficit in the AFC Championship game in Kansas City and unthrone the 2-time defending conference champion Kansas City Chiefs. So here are the Bengals coming from the 5th pick in the draft, where you had a lot of people criticizing them for not taking Sewell instead of Jamar Chase. How wrong that looks now, right? To almost winning the Super Bowl. I mean, it was really close for them. You could make a very strong argument that not only could the Bengals have won that Super Bowl back in February, I might maintain they really honestly should have won that Super Bowl in February and didn't. So this is an example of, no, they didn't win the championship, but damn, they got really close. And while it sucks to get that close and not do it, if you're a Bengals fan, you got to feel a lot better about things because you feel like Zach Taylor's solid as a head coach, if nothing else. Joe Burrow is that dude. You managed to squeeze Ken Riley through the Senior Committee Hall of Fame process, you jerks. Way to fucking set back the process and lower the bar forever. So feeling good if you're a Bengals fan right now. What you probably really like about this team in the offseason was the number 1 opportunity, the number 1 weakness for this team, easily, understandably, was that offensive line. Now, there's a trade-off for drafting Jamar Chase and not taking Penei Sewell to play right tackle. Was you knew you were going to have to address the right tackle position and other positions on that offensive line because the running game suffered, Burrow's protection suffered. It's fortunate for the Bengals they were able to keep Burrow upright all year because at times he was under siege last season. But at least the Bengals said, we got to put our money where our mouth is and we got to protect this young man. They went out and gave big money to Alex Kappa to play inside, signed Lyle Collins away after he was released by the Dallas Cowboys. What a good get he was for them. Signed Ted Karras away from the New England Patriots. So you're talking about they basically just remade the entire right side of their offensive line in one offseason. In one offseason, they signed 60% of a starting offensive line. That's really, really damn good. And that's absolutely what the priority had to be. Because if you protect Burrow better, maybe your offense is even better, and you win the Super Bowl. So now the Bengals, on the one hand, trying to avoid the thought of the Super Bowl losers curse, which hasn't been quite as much of a thing in recent years, but still sometimes could be a thing, versus sitting there and saying, hey, this team got really close, and with a little bit more sauce added in, the Bengals can get right back in there and win the Super Bowl this time. And there's an argument to be made that, as lucky as you might feel like their playoff run was last year, I mean, they got it done. They almost got it all the way done. But you got to like a lot about this team. Joe Burrow, obviously. No, I don't think he's elite yet, but he's certainly proven he's a franchise guy. He's certainly a top 8 or 10 quarterback in the league, if nothing else. You win a lot of games with a top 8 or 10 quarterback in the league, I'm just saying. And the exciting thing about him is he's only entering year 3 of his career. The offensive skill talent around him. Like, you've got Jamar Chase, and you've got Higgins, you've got Boyd, you've got Joe Mixon. You've got some really nice weapons around him. Like, this is how it's supposed to be done. You get the young quarterback, bring him in, maybe there's some pieces already around him, but then you go get a Jamar Chase. And then you bring in a bunch of offensive linemen to protect your franchise player. That's how it's supposed to be. And then you look at him defensively. This is a team that should be able to get after opposing quarterbacks again this year. They did a solid job of that, especially in key times last year. Their run defense was pretty solid as well. Like, this is a pretty solid all-around team. They do have some concerns. I noted before about the running game. Some of that you could say, well, as much as they threw the ball, they didn't run as much, so it impacted their yards per game, and that's true. But you'd like to maybe at times balance out your attack a little bit more. But with the offensive line they had last year, they weren't as prone to do that or able to do that, so they had to throw it more. Getting a little more balance would be nice. And then their secondary. We saw it in the Super Bowl. Their secondary had moments where they could certainly be beaten and had. And what did they do to really improve that secondary that would change that at all this upcoming season? But I'm still, feeling confident about the Bengals right now. They didn't really lose a bunch of key pieces, frankly. And this is a team that was this close to winning the Super Bowl. Like, I give props and credit where credit's due. That's why I can't imagine not picking them to win this division. If I look at some key matchups for them early in the season, like Week 4, they host Miami, Week 5 at Baltimore, where it really gets tough for the Bengals, so they better take advantage of that early schedule. They better, build up their lead, build up their wins, because those last 7 games get a whole hell of a lot tougher. Week 12, you go back to play the Titans in Tennessee. Then you host Kansas City, you host Cleveland, who will have Deshaun Watson presumably at that point. Then you got to go to Tampa Bay, to New England, then you come back and play Buffalo at home in Week 17, which that could be a monster, and potentially even the game against Baltimore at home in Week 18 is a monster. So this could be a situation where you look at the Bengals get off to a really good start because of their early schedule, and then they have to kind of struggle through the ending stretch to hold on to win that division because of that tough closing stretch of their schedule. I think they'll be able to do just enough to be able to win the division. I've got them finishing 11-6, just a little bit ahead of the Baltimore Ravens. I really like this Bengals team, though. I don't know if I'm going to sit there and say that they're going back to the Super Bowl, because I think that's the Bills that go round. But while their ascension to almost the tops felt kind of flukish and out of nowhere last year, like, you look at the fundamentals of this team and you say there's no reason to think, at a minimum at least, that they're not a playoff team in 2022.